So human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to compel a person into commercial sex acts or labor against their wills. To be considered trafficking, you have to exchange money or something of value. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone's being transported somewhere. It can be a teenager that lives at home and her boyfriend is trafficking her, but yet she still goes home every night. So it doesn't require you to actually transport them or kidnap them. Some of you will be shocked, some outraged, some saddened. My hope is that all of us will be spurred into some kind of action. This happens every day in the U.S., all over, in the cities, towns, rural areas, at greater volume than anybody can imagine. The AMP model's helpful to understanding what it means under federal law. It means the human trafficker occurs when the perpetrator or the trafficker takes action, which means he induces, recruits, harbors, transports, and provides a means for force, fraud, or coercion, for a purpose to provide commercial sex acts or to provide labor. Traffickers realize that it's much easier to use women and children in the United States, or in some cases boys, than it is to bring in illegals from other countries. It's just less chance of getting caught for them. The statistics, there's 99 billion industries globally. American traffickers can make up to $250,000 a year trafficking a victim or selling a child. In 2011, there was 1.1 million children and thousands more women that were being trafficked in the U.S. But that's about only 1% of what they know, because it's hard to track. The average age of trafficking is between 12 and 14 years old when they start. 80% of the victims are re-victimized if they don't have a place to go to escape. Only about 4% of child trafficking involves kidnapping. A lot of times it's the parents. You know, in August 6th, I think it was, in the Winchester Star, Officer Hawkins had wrote an article where he's doing some undercover work on the internet, and he posed himself as a parent willing to trade his child for sex acts for them to give him their children for sex acts. He posted it on a Tuesday night. By Wednesday morning, he had 4 hits, and that was in Winchester. That was in Winchester, Frederick County. So it's here and it's in our town.
So where does he post that?
He actually had an article in the Winchester Star.
He's not going to give up methods and sources.
August 4th.
August 4th or August 6th, somewhere around in there.
Oh, so it's not Facebook or
No, it was in an article at the paper. I happened to have it while I was at work, and I read the article while I was working.
I saw that too.
You were killing time.
I was killing time. 36% are figured to be boys. 40% are done by their families. 66% is by someone they trust. There are 21st century slaves. These are slaves. We hear about the slaves were freed by Abraham Lincoln. They weren't freed. We still have slaves today. They just use them in...
There's more people in slavery today than there's ever been in history.
Including us.
The good news is America's starting to look. We're starting to notice this problem. The bad news is there's millions that still don't understand the depth or the severity of this problem. They don't understand that it really happens and that there's victims and that they're familiar and they could be people that we're aware of. How does our state rate? Virginia rates 20th. We are one of the not so good for our laws on human trafficking. I just found this article on sharedhope.org. Virginia has a rating of an F. We have an F for criminal provisions. We have an F for identification and response to victims. We have an F for continuum of care for the victims. We do have a D in access to the justice for trafficking survivors. We have an F for the tools for the victim-centered criminal justice response, an F in prevention and training. So we really need to get a hold of our legislators and everything to change the laws. Part of the problem is, they arrest these kids and these young women for prostitution, for theft, for different things, and then they end up with a criminal record. Or they're put into the foster care system and they're never given the help that they need. So therefore they still can be re-victimized very easily and coerced into different things. In January, the U.S. ratified the banning of slavery. On October 28th of 2000, Trafficking Victims Protection Act was passed. And they're trying to get the federal and the state laws to coincide. There's so much of a big difference between the federal and the state laws that's where a lot of the problems occur. So we'll talk a little bit about labor trafficking, and that's the act of forcing people to work either through violence, detention, taking their IDs away from them, making them work for little money, or there's a difference between labor trafficking and human smuggling. Human smuggling, a person chooses to go with them to a job. They know where it is, but they're able to leave. They're able to switch jobs. That's smuggling, which is totally different than human trafficking, where the victim doesn't have a choice. They have to work. They have to do what they're told, and they have to stay there, and they don't have a choice whether to leave or not. You can find labor trafficking in agriculture. A lot of times there's language barriers. The victims don't know the location. They're being threatened to be deported, or they're being threatened with physical harm. Construction, they provide labor through threats. Domestic work, household servants such as nannies and cooks. A lot of times family give them their children thinking they're going to have a place to stay, get an education, but then these rich families take in these children to be their nannies or their housekeepers or their cooks, and they don't give them their education, and they're forced to work long hours every day and don't receive anything for it. Health and beauty, nail salons, spas, massage parlors, and a lot of times they also provide sex. It's not just that sometimes they take them in the back and do what they are forced to do. Restaurants, they can be cooked, front of the house, they can be the people that clean. Hotels, they're maids, they're cooks, and other tourist attractions like carnivals, racetracks. A lot of times the trafficker or the pimp will take them to these places and have them work, and they have to make a certain amount of money every night. And a lot of times these victims are having to, perform sexual acts up to 100 times a night. So laboring red flags. They're pressured to stay on the job. They owe money to the employer that is an amount they'd never be able to pay back. They don't have control of their own IDs or their passports, so they can't prove who they are. They're living or working in very isolated conditions. They appear to be monitored by someone all the time. They're living in dangerous, overcrowded, and inhumane conditions. Like they may have them sleeping in a barn or in a garage and have 40 or 50 of them sleeping in the same room. They're being threatened with violence. So they really just, they don't have a choice. Sex trafficking. You can have love trafficking. The victim doesn't think they're a victim because they just were going to do it one time because their boyfriend asked them to and they're in love. So therefore, I love him, so I have to do this. And then once he gets her to do it one time, then he's like, okay, well, we have this. We have pictures. We're going to send that to your family. We're going to send that to your friends. We're going to post these at your school. And so then they feel guilty, that they chose to do it. So then they continue doing it because they're embarrassed and they don't want these pictures put out. So then they're continuing to be trafficked by, a lot of times it's a good looking guy. He may be 20 years old. He may be in college. He has money. He buys her gifts. He gives her attention. A lot of times she might be from a single family home. She might be from a good family, but the family works a lot. So they don't spend a lot of time with their child. So it's just an attention, and the boyfriend realizes it, and that's kind of how he gets her in there. It can be by a husband. A husband can do it to his wife, and she's in love, and so therefore, she just kind of does it. Some red flags. Look for unusual patterns. You have a child who played sports, and all of a sudden, they don't want to play sports anymore. They don't want to go to drama class. They don't want to participate in activities that they used to really enjoy. You see them on escort ads. Unusual requests from them. They want to stay out later. They want to go to this party. You don't know where they're going. They could be abused. You can see the physical signs of abuse on them, and maybe you can't. Maybe it's emotional abuse, but they're being controlled by somebody. They act like they're under distress. They're very nervous. Their body language. All of a sudden, they start having expensive gifts. They have jewelry. They have a new phone. They have an iPod. They have a second phone. They start withdrawing from their friends and their family. They don't want to do things with the family. The family went camping. Oh, I don't want to go camping. I want to stay home. They have an older boyfriend. They start doing drugs. Usually, the trafficker will start them on drugs, and then they become addicted. They're no longer interested in their hobbies. They could be acting out, especially in younger children. They don't know how to express it, so they get aggressive. And they'll start acting out, and, people think, oh, they're ADD, they're this or that, and they label them, and no one really gets down to find out what the problem is. So the traffickers get their victims by, they're really, really good at spotting young children, foster children, bullied children, youth that are bullied at school for different things, domestic violence victims, young teens or teen parents, individuals with disabilities, the LGBTQ community, or other individuals that might have a low self-esteem. Someone that's going through a divorce. She's real vulnerable to and impressionable to someone showing them attention. Someone who's been physically or emotionally abused, and individuals that could be depressed or suicidal. And traffickers are, I'm not sure how they're trained, but they are trained, and they are very, very good at reading people and finding them. They feel a need, either a parental role, uh, a role model. They might have housing for them. They act like they're in love with them. There are romantic interests, drugs, alcohol, transportation to go different places, money, gifts, food. Sometimes it's just food because maybe they don't have enough food at home and they're giving them food, and that's meeting one of their basic needs. So then you have the grooming line. You have the targeting stage, and that's where the trafficker targets their victim. They observe them, they watch them, and they realize, oh, that's the one I'm going to go work on this one here. And then they have the friendship. I'm your friend. They form a friendship with this person. They make themselves important in this person's life. Then the love relationship. They love them like a parent. They love them like a boyfriend. And, they'll do anything for love. As you know, love is blind, and young kids who think they know it all, it's very powerful to them. And then it gets abusive. If you don't do this, then he starts slapping her around, or hitting her, or you will do this. And, she just really doesn't have a choice. Once she starts, they pretty much keep them. Why don't they leave? Well, the trafficker monopolizes their time. They don't really have anybody to talk to. They don't have anybody they can go to. They don't have any place they feel safe. They feel safe with their trafficker and don't think they have another option. They create an urgency to hang out with victims over their friend and families. They make the victim feel as if the trafficker is the only person who cares about them. They urge the victim to stay in constant communication. And here's one that, where I work at, I noticed there was a young girl, probably 19 to 20, who comes in, was Spanish speaking, didn't speak a lot of English, and always had her phone. And she had her phone, and it wasn't that she was trying to communicate with this person, she's just carrying it. And it was on FaceTime. And everything she did, this person could see what she was doing. She had to show them what she was doing. And there was a younger girl that would come in with her that was probably about 16. Then I noticed about a month ago, all of a sudden they had a 3 or 4-year-old little girl that was just there. I do know a state police officer that lives in my neighborhood, and I reported my suspicions to him. And they actually have been watching this family, and he didn't know about the little girl, the youngest one. And I said, yeah, they've been coming in for 6, 7 months, and then all of a sudden, there's a 2 or 3-year-old. Neither one of them were pregnant. So, it really made me uncomfortable for those girls. The one dressed like a prostitute, looked like a prostitute. Everyone in the neighborhood thought she was a prostitute. But she constantly had her phone. She asked for rides. I've talked to different people that have given her rides, and she always has her phone on FaceTime with this person. No speaking between them, but the phone's open on FaceTime at all times. So it's just, they're just really scared. So they stay. Ways that you can recognize or even try to help a person is if you use the acronym SPEAK. And that's to start a conversation with your kids, with kids that you know, not necessarily your kids, your grandkids, your friends of your children or grandchildren. Talk to them. Keep that communication open. P, prepare and educate your kids about the realities of human trafficking. It's not anything any of us want our children to know. It's sad that we actually have to do this with our young children, as young as 9 or 10, that we have to warn them about that. Expectations. Set rules and expectations when using social media especially. especially even video games. Roblox is really a bad one. Any kind of video game that has a chat feature. You need to monitor that or not let your children play on those because it's extremely dangerous. You know, these traffickers pose as a 10-year-old child. They know how to speak as if they are 10, and then they convince these kids to go and meet them. And it's scary. Awareness. Be aware of where your child is and who your child's talking to. And keep that conversation going with the kids all the time. It's very important. Now, probably more than ever before, you know, we always talked about stranger danger. Well, these strangers are coming through social media. These strangers may not even be strangers. They may be their uncle, their grandfather, your best friend that you would never dream of. But if you have that communication going with your children, that helps a lot. Keeping children 3 to 5 years old safe, which is kind of scary that we have to think about it at that young of age. But teach them the correct names of their body parts so they can tell you. Make sure that they understand what private means. Use a bathing suit as an example. Anything your bathing suit covers is your private area that no one besides mommy or daddy or the doctors should be touching, only if we have to, you know, wash you or, you know, and if anybody's touching you, you need to let us know. Remind them that these touches by adults, or they can be by other children, because other children that are victimized can victimize your children not knowing. Because at 3 or 5, hey, it feels good. They don't know that it's wrong because they weren't taught that it's wrong. So, you know, and you want to help that other child also. Start teaching your children about personal space. Don't force them to give somebody a hug if they don't want to. Teach them to be respectful. They can wave, they can give a handshake, but if they don't want someone in their personal space, take that as a warning, you know. They may just feel uncomfortable, you know, they may be shy. But teaching them about their own personal space and not forcing them to hug somebody when they're not comfortable helps them to understand what's acceptable and what's not. And also teaching them, you know, because little kids like to go up and hug people, but teaching them, you know, they might not want you to, you know, and that's okay. You know, but also teaching them that. 6 to 9, signs of abuse. The child starts to struggle with boundaries. You know, they have a hard time, even if they're not victims, learning what boundaries are, learning how far they can push their parents and push everything. That's normal. What becomes beyond pushing those boundaries is what we have to watch. If they have those and emotional outbursts. I can tell you my granddaughter's the biggest drama queen ever. You know, I mean, the world comes to an end with her. But trying to understand what it's about, whether it's just a normal emotional outburst or if they seem to disconnect. They just want to go off. You know, they used to be wanting to be in the room, wanting to play, and all of a sudden they don't. But let them allow who comes into their personal space. Teach them to ask before going into somebody else's personal space, is it okay if I give you a hug? Instead of just running up and giving them a hug. Teach them that they need to respect that if somebody doesn't want a hug, they have to respect that person just like they expect to be respected about it. Encourage an open dialogue and express emotions. Children have a hard time with that one. That it's okay to cry, it's okay to be mad. It's not okay to punch someone in the face, but it's okay to be angry. You know, I mean,
Some of us are still working on it.
yeah, some of us still have a problem. No, man. Work with your child to set up a safety network, 3 to 5 people that they feel safe with, that if they feel that they are unsafe, that they can call. And it doesn't always have to be mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. You know, it could be one of their friends' moms. You just want to be able to encourage them to have safe people to talk to that they feel safe with. Make a game up of safe and unsafe surprises. You know, teach them that secrets aren't good, but yet if you're having a surprise party for somebody, that's a secret. So, you know, write down different secrets and put them in a hat and pull them out and say, is this a fun surprise or is this a secret? You know, and discuss why. Discuss why with them. Practice the power stance. Teach them to stand up, stand tall, and say no. And practice it with them. You know, just so they know that they can stand tall and they can say no if that's what they feel. And then age appropriate when they start asking questions about sex or boys and girls and everything, you know, have age appropriate conversations with them. I mean, you don't want to go into the whole thing with the 6 to 9 year old that you would with the 16-year-old.
JeanAnn, isn't that kind of hard when the kids are, you know, they're 2 and 3 years old in these nursery schools and so forth, that they're being taught certain things about their sex and everything else that kind of puts the parent at an disadvantage, don't it?
Yeah, that's when you just, as a parent, you have to kind of keep that communication and what your morals and your values are so that your child knows. And when they come home with different things they're teaching them about, you know, if you choose to be a boy or you choose to be a girl, no, no, no. In our house, you were born a girl and you will always be a girl. In our house, you were born a boy and you will be a boy. You know, that's where you have to start with your values and morals with your children, and you have to stick to it. And when they come home and they talk about it, I've had this conversation with my granddaughter, you know, oh, well, you know, if he wants to, no, it's not okay. And, you know, we talk about it at our house because we're Christians and we believe in God. And it's like, no, God made you this way.
That's right.
And that's the way you are. Here's about the time you have to start talking to children about pornography, which is really sad at 10 to 13. But it's on TV. Their friends have it at school. You know, they're going to start seeing it, and you have to start teaching them your morals and your values about, you know, this is not a good thing. You know, that you shouldn't be viewing other people's private parts either. Create a policy device, and there at the end of the slideshow, there's the online policy that's on there, a sample. Work with your child for an online safety agreement, and both of you sign it. You have your child sign it and discuss it and openly discuss this safety thing. Figure out where your child's most comfortable talking to you, whether it's in the car or it's down in the family room or whether it's outside in the yard. Where does your child feel more comfortable talking to you? And that's where you need to go, and that's where you need to have a conversation. You need to sit and you need to listen. Not always talk, but listen. Let them do the talking. And just listen to them, because our kids have to face a lot of things that we didn't have to face when we were that age. And even some of our children didn't have to face when they were our age or that age. But then again, make another safety list of 3 to 5 people with your child on who they feel safe with. It may not be the same people it was when they were 6 to 9. It may be different people that they feel comfortable with. Maybe one of those 3 to 5 they're not comfortable with anymore. You know, as they grow and as they mature, they get a sense of who they can trust. At 14 to 18-year-olds, this is when a child starts reaching high school and they start to navigating sexual consent, pornography, and living in the digital age. A lot of us, still as adults, we have a hard time living in the digital age. We're not real good with that, and the kids are usually better than we are getting into that. You have to encourage them to define their own inner voice. What doesn't feel right to them? You know, when they feel that something's wrong, you know, they probably shouldn't do it. Encourage them to know that. Download eBodyguard onto their devices, to their phones. It's voice activated. It's something,
We have Safer, yeah.
what you're safe for?
SAFE, 4R,
Yeah, safer
cheap.
is cheap is another one. It's voice activated. They only have to say a word
Yep.
with their phone, and their phone automatically calls somebody and it starts recording what's going on. 5 people. I think this one's 4. It has the GPS location even if the
Geofence.
phone's turned off. Ask them how often they're saying yes to things that they really don't have. Like their friends want to go do this. How often are you saying yes to something you don't want to do, but your friends want to do it? So you say, okay, yeah, okay, we'll go do this. You know, and how many times are they saying no to things they want to do? Yes, I'm going to go do this with my best friend Sally because, you know, Sally said, well, she likes doing that. But I really want to go to the football game because that's what interests me. But Sally doesn't want to. Sally wants to go to the skating rink, so we're going to go there. So how many times are they saying no to things they want to do and yes to things they really don't want to do? Are they surrounding themselves with people who are encouraging them to be their best? And are they encouraging their friends to be their best? And if they're around people that aren't encouraging them to do their best and be their best, then talk to them about maybe choosing different friends, or, you know, maybe this isn't a very good relationship. Are you making choices based on what's best for you or best for other people? Social media and gaming apps. We kind of talked on this a little bit already. Talk about the dangers of chatting with people. Chatting with people you don't know. Do you know that person? Have you physically ever met that person? If you haven't, you should not be talking to them. Talk about safe and unsafe information that they should share. You know, giving their full name, their full birth date, where they live, where they go to school, you know, who their parents are, you know, what can I tell people, what can I not tell them? You can tell them that you're 11, 12 years old. You don't need to give them your exact birth date. Restrict downloads. Make sure that your child's phone, tablet, computer is hooked to your phone or your account so that you know what your child's downloading at all times, and that you have to give permission in order for anything to be downloaded. Follow your friends. If they have a social media account, follow them, be friends with them, watch them. You're not here to be their friend, you're here to be their parent and keep them safe.
Yes.
You know, it's set boundaries. Download Bark. Bark monitors your children's devices. It monitors what's going on with them, their app use and their content, and then you can check what they're doing. Because kids have a way to get around things. Give your child excuses. Let you be your child's excuse. Oh, I'm sorry, my mom and dad won't let me. My mom or dad won't let me. My mom and dad see everything. Be the bad guy. That's fine. Let your child make you the bad guy, because that's a way for them to protect themselves, but also stay safe. Skip the page. I went too far ahead in my notes. Social media post. What teens are posting and what the traffickers' response. Nobody gets me. No trafficker, I understand you. I'm sick of being single, but I love you. I'm so ugly. Well, I think you're beautiful. How do I look? Oh, you could be a model or a singer. My life sucks. I'll make you feel better. She's not my true friend. Well, I'll be your friend. My parents just don't trust me. Well, you're an adult. You can do what you want. I'm being treated like a kid. Oh, well, you're not a kid. You're a grown-up. You can make big kids' decisions. I just need to get out of here. Well, come with me. I'll protect you. I wish I had. Can be anything. I'll make you successful. I'll make you a model. I'll make you a singer. Those are kind of things even as single women, young men have to watch how they post, because that's the kind of things the traffickers are looking for. Internet use. Set healthy boundaries. Describe when and where you're going to use a computer. Have it in the living room where the family can see what's going on, where you can see what your child, or in the kitchen, or wherever, more people are going to be than up in their room doing whatever they want to do, right, where you can't monitor what they're doing. Discuss where the devices are that they can use at the library, at the school, and discuss what they're allowed to do. They have ways to get at their friend's house, at school, in a public library. Discuss what they're allowed to be seeing and what they shouldn't be doing, and what types of websites are allowed. Teach them responsible ways to use social media. The restrictions that you have, again, with the online, and sign that safety agreement, again, at this age. Sexting and sextortion. You need to talk to your kids about this. Partially nude photos are very acceptable in our society now, which is where a lot of this is stemming from. Talk about the kinds of pictures your children should and should not be taking of themselves and of their friends. 21% of girls and 18% of boys sent or posted nude pictures or semi-nude pictures of themselves. Explain that when you send a picture to one person, it doesn't just stay there. That picture can go on and on and on and on to everybody at their school or everybody in their neighborhood, all over the world. Explain that those pictures can be used for bullying. They can use those to make you do things you don't want to do. They can use those to make you feel bad about yourself. You can get expelled from school for doing it. It can be a felony charge for the production of child pornography and distributing. Sextortion is a threat to expose a sexual imaging. That's where the trafficker comes in. They convince them, you're beautiful, send me a picture, and then they use that picture. 1 of 4 children are threatened before the age of 13. 2 and 3 are threatened before the age of 16. It's critical to help these kids understand the risks. It's important to discuss and problem solve ways to escape if they find themselves in compromising situations. Give them questions to ask themselves before sharing a photo. Is this something that I would do face to face? Am I okay if this is posted all over my school? Would I be okay with my family seeing these photos? Plan steps of actions they can take if they're uncomfortable, their safety network. Emojis and acronyms, which is kind of hard to see, but these are things we have to start looking for. The eggplant there is a penis. The cat, that's a vagina. The tongue sticking out, oral sex on a female. A sucker, suck. The flames, you're so hot. The cherries, female's virginity. I can't read it. The rocket ship and the little teepee or volcano is an orgasm. These are different things that they just use these pictures and that mean all these different things. See you for sex. G-knock, get naked on camera. Molly, a dangerous party drug. NIFOC, naked in front of your computer. Netflix or chill, used as a front for inviting someone to make out. Smash, casual sex. Turn up, to be high or drunk. WTGB, want to go private? That's in the chat room. They want to go to a private chat room. 143, I love you. X, ecstasy. 53X, sex. WTTP, want to trade a photo? LMIRL, let's meet in real life. IRL, in real life. M or F, male or female. S, question mark, your sexual orientation. 16, pimp. 304, hoe. HGO, hoeing going on. PGO, pimping going on. KMS, kill myself. KYS, kill yourself. XS, kisses. FB, buddy. ILY or ILU, variations of I love you. 18 plus, asking if the person is 18 years or older. These are just a very small, minute pictures and acronyms that these kids and these traffickers are using just to try to stay online. There's the online safety agreement. I will only use the apps that we've agreed upon. I will give my parents access to my accounts. I will alert my parent if someone needs to send me inappropriate content. I will not provide personal information without my parents' consent. I will not share my username or passwords with anyone except for my parents. I will be respectful to other people online, including their privacy and personal property. I will not post content that would hurt someone else's feelings. I won't send inappropriate photos, even over a text message. If someone makes me feel uncomfortable or does something that could put me or someone else in danger, I will go directly to my parents or a trusted adult. I will be allowed to spend blank minutes, hours on a device each day. When I go to bed, my device will be placed blank. I agree to the terms. The child signs it, the parent signs it. Who can we report to? 911 or your local law enforcement. You can call 1-866-347-2423. That's the Homeland Security Investigations. They have a 24-hour tip line, 7 days a week, every day of the year. You can call 1-888-737-7888 or text help or info to Be Free. The National Human Trafficking Hotline. You can call 1-800-LOST or go to the cyber tip at National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or you can call the DOJ at 1-888-428-7581. It takes all of us to help end human trafficking. What destroyed the moral compass in so many individuals to create such a demand? Why is it tolerated in our culture? Where is this feeling of horror and terror? We should all be asking ourselves these questions. In the U.S., we have critical federal anti-human trafficking laws. However, we have two problems. The monies for the victims has never been appropriated. It's at the state's level for enforcement and that the prosecution takes place, and most states are not consistent with the federal laws. What can we do? We need not to give the victims criminal records. We need to arrest and prosecute the buyers, and we need to make sure that these state laws make sure these people are prosecuted. We need appropriate shelters and services to restore the victims so they don't become re-victimized. We need to save them, pull them out, and then we need to restore them. And we need better ways to report and keep more accurate records, because they don't have records. You know, they arrest someone for prostitution, and they're a prostitute, they have a criminal record, but no one ever found out if they were actually a victim, and they were never counted as a victim. So, you know, that's where our problems here in the U.S., this is where our problems are, and this is where I'm working to try to figure out ways in our community that I have talked to the Frederick County Sheriff's Department. They do have a task force. Their task force actually works with the state task force, but they don't have shelters. They don't have places. The children that they take from these trafficking situations, they end up in foster care, but they're not getting the care that they need. You know, they're getting housing and stuff, but they're not getting the psychological help that they need to help them overcome the fact that they were victims.
Aren't the foster care involved to a large degree?
And some cares, the foster cares are. In a lot of cases, the police officers are involved. It's hard to know who to trust. I'm going to a training tomorrow night and Saturday with Saving Sparrows. They have safe houses in Haiti and Pakistan, which our church actually helped save 29 children. But we need to figure out how to get through the red tape in the United States to have these safe houses. There's so much red tape to go through to actually open a safe house in the United States that it's almost impossible. So this is where we need to get a hold of our law enforcement and locally, state level, nationally, and say, you know, these victims need to not be victims. We need to help them. We need to save them. We need a place to put them.
The zoning people.
Zoning people, yeah. There's someone I know that wanted to will their house to an estate for abused or trafficked people, and they were told no because they were zoned for residential. So therefore, they could not do that.
Because you're a trafficker, you can do it anywhere you want.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, pretty much. So
Nobody stops that.
I'm still infantile in all of this and still trying to figure out how to take the next step to go to where we need to go, who we need to contact. But there's entirely too many. Frederick County, the Shenandoah Valley is a hot spot. We are a major hot spot for trafficking due to the fact that we're by 81. We have all these highways. 50 runs from coast to coast, straight through here. You know, 95's not that far away. You know, DC, Baltimore, You know, the drugs are coming in from DC and Baltimore, and they're getting these kids addicted to these drugs, and then they're making them prostitute, they're making them steal, they're making them do all these things. Just be on the lookout when you're at your hair salon, when you're at your nail salon, when you're at the store, something that someone was telling us a story. They went to Walmart and they were in the parking lot, and a tractor trailer pulled in, and then a van pulled in, and then they swapped kids. You know, to me, that's a little suspicious with a tractor trailer and a van. I mean, I do know through my own experience and friends of mine that if you have court-appointed child custody, they a lot of times want you to go to public to swap your kids for visitations. But most of the time, it's 2 cars. It's usually not a big van and a tractor trailer.
Right.
You know, just look for signs and call the hotline, call 911. You know, better it be nothing than to miss it. So you're better to report it than to miss it. I know as a child care provider, there were times that I had to call for a child abuse, love the children, love the parents, but this was a suspicion. I was mandated to call, and I had to call whether anybody liked it or not, you know, because if I was wrong and something happened to that child, I would have felt horrible. So I did it, you know, and this is the same kind of situation. You know, people don't want to get involved. Well, if we don't get involved, this is why we are the #1 trafficker in the world. And we should not, the United States should not have that title.
What a shame.
Yes, ma'am.
If we call one of the hotline numbers, excuse me, what can we expect? What kind of action can we expect while we're sitting there waiting?
None.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hotline numbers, the ones that I've really, the Safe House and these different numbers that I've gotten a hold of, they have, and through Frederick County, they have for every county, every state, a list, and they call and they send them. If you tell them the location, you tell them the circumstances, you tell them, you know, you can do it anonymous. More than likely, just like when I had to do child abuse, I did not know what happened with the investigation. You know, I had to call a few times, never saw that child again at my center, didn't know what happened, don't know if the child went back home, don't know, you know, we don't know, but maybe possibly we saved one victim.
That's a problem.
It's a problem.
It's a problem that we don't know what the end result was, because probably nothing. Right?
Not necessarily. I mean, a lot of times something is happened, but for the victim's safety, you don't want everybody to know where they're at because you don't want their trafficker to find them. So, I mean, they have to kind of keep things somewhat confidential due to that. I mean, if you have a safe house and they send them there, you don't want to publicize where you sent them because...
It'd still be nice if
So-
they got back to you and said, look, your child's in safe custody. Just so that you know.
Yeah.
I went through it, they won't.
Yeah, I mean, they won't. I had a child that came to one of my centers, and this child had 2 black eyes, was told he fell into the bathtub faucet, but it was not consistent. I called. He happened to be in foster care at the point. We just never saw him again. But we reported it because we were trying to protect him.
We were also liable for
Now,
the disease in care.
yeah, we're liable as a mandated reporter for child abuse. You know, if I didn't report and something was to happen to a child and I knew about it, I went to jail for a year and got a $1,500 fine. Me personally, not my center, just me personally, because I was mandated. So it's not a fun thing to do. It's not a fun thing to be in that situation where you have to call, but it's important to do it.
And if that agency needs to contact another agency over the process, somehow it could happen, they will not tell you that they had to do that. you'll almost be left hanging, like, what the hell happened? And they have no liberties to tell you what happened.
They're not gonna tell you.
They just say,
My hope is we can get a safe house somewhere here in the Shenandoah Valley, and you have to have a safe house for the younger children, you have to have a safe house for the teenagers to 20-year-olds, and then you have to have a safe house for women. Because you don't want the teenagers in with the younger children. You don't want the victim women in with the teenagers or the children, because they need to be separate, and they all need their housing, they need food, they need clothes, they need counseling. There's a lot into all of it.
There's a lot.
How would they get placed into one of the safe houses? What would be the route? Would they get there?
Well, a lot of times, I know in Frederick County, their task force is working downtown where some of the prostitutes are, and they're not arresting them. They're trying to build like relationships with them, so that when they want to come out, then they take these women. And I think from what they told me that they have a place that someone actually finances the entire thing in Shenandoah County. But Frederick County sends theirs there. Now, whether Shenandoah County actually uses it too, I don't know. But you don't really want to keep them in your own county, because then their traffickers are close by.
It's easier to spot.
And they're in love. So, they're more likely. If you have them in Shenandoah County or Berkeley County, it's going to be harder for them to get back to what they're
Farther
used
out
to.
the sticks, the better.
And
So-
vetting the people that are volunteering to
Yeah.
help set these places up, because you want to keep the creepers out.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
they're real good at getting in
Oh, yeah.
to these places.
Yeah, it has to be pretty hush-hush due to the fact that, there are so many traffickers that you don't want the traffickers there.
Well, you don't know what they're escaping from.
Right. And you also, but you don't want the traffickers infiltrating the place
Don't
either.
want the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot, it's very complex,
So many layers.
and so many layers, but my hope is, even if we can only open one and we can only save 5 women or 5 children. That's 5 that's not a victim anymore. There's 1 that's not a victim anymore. So, just looking for ideas, looking for different ways, hoping that I can build a partnership with Saving Sparrows and figure out a way they really want to do something closer to home, and not that it's not important to do it in the foreign countries also, because their governments pretty much run theirs. Their trafficking.
Ours does too.
Not out in the open like their governments do. Our government does it underground, at least.
Politicians.
But,
Well, that's
Yes.
part of one of the phone numbers is DOJ. It's like, some of them are part of that.
They'll be here for the next couple of years.
I only have so many resources that I've been able to track down. The one that really came out a lot was the Missing and Exploited Children hotline on almost all my trainings. That's the one they said to call.
They said to call
More.
that one?
That, almost every one of the trainings that I did through my certifications, that was their number that they used.
Have you ever
Polaris.
talked to anybody at the Laurel Center? Because they work with women of domestic violence.
I have not. I'm still trying to be able to set up an appointment with Frederick County and with our state task force. I'm still working on trying to get together with them, but they're pretty busy too.
We know how to do that. We've got to go see the sheriff.
They got their hands full too, the task force and stuff. Yes, Jeanette?
So, yesterday, a few of us went to the planning board thing, and we got to hear really nice things about a family that has Arrow.
Sergeant.
It was nice to hear the children saying, it's a place where we can do something, it's a safe place, we don't have to be on the phone. And so isn't part of the problem that too many of our children are just idle?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so if we want to actually do a prevention, maybe we need to start thinking about neighborhood churches and more things and getting, I guess, the parenting thing and the school thing. I guess too many kids are bored.
yeah, I mean, I know when I was a teenager in my community, we had Saturday night team center that all the kids went to. We had one chaperone up there that night. Whether they chaperoned us real well, I can't really tell you, but but we at least went there, and we actually stayed within our boundaries of the areas of the team center, inside and out.
Good, clean fun.
Yeah, good, clean fun.
Well, there's
But-
a whole different definition of that nowadays. There is no really good fun.
But, we had things like that. I know when my son was younger, he went to the Youth Development Center for different things that he did. But we don't really have a place for teenagers and young kids to actually go and just have fun and be kids and be safe.
Well,
No,
part of the problem is
we have to work as a community with different neighborhoods and get us to be back to being neighbors versus it's too easy for all of us parents and so forth to be so busy doing stuff that our kids are bored.
Yeah,
And it's in the best of families that the parents are doing all sorts of things, maybe helping with something else or being a pastor or being something. And it's often that our own kids get idle.
Working to pay the bills, you got two
Yeah.
parents out.
yeah. A lot of times,
This is all by design.
we have two working parents. I
All by
mean,
design.
Gene, you had something to say?
Yeah, the other factor is you really have to monitor how much time they're spending on their cell phones. And from spending time driving the bus for the time that I did, the kids are getting cell phones younger and younger and younger. And you cannot have kids in elementary school have no business having a cell phone because they have hours of unrestricted use with that cell phone. Nobody's monitoring what they're doing with it. The kids in the middle school have no filters on those phones. There's nothing to stop them. They can go ahead and get all the pornography they want. And that stuff is highly addictive. Once that hook gets set, man, it's really hard for them to break out of that. And then it's like a infectious disease. It's communicable. Yeah, it goes from one kid to the next
No.
because when one of them gets it, they say, "Hey, did you see this?"
Yeah, that's why I said, it's sad.
This is running rampant through our middle schools especially, and then with the stuff that they're giving them in the classroom to say, here, you can do this and you can do this and, take a little lotion and the stuff they're talking about at the school board meetings, we really have to start, I think, being very extremely vocal and proactive at putting a stop to the indoctrination or the desensitizing of our children to say this is okay, this is normal. They're completely destroying a generation of young people, and nobody seems to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah,
Do as thou wilt.
people just not,
Well, it's no longer
our morals
do
are
as thou
just,
wilt. It's a matter of here, do this. This is
Yeah.
okay.
but yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, look in Frederick County, how many teachers this past year got caught.
How many didn't?
Yeah. How many got caught and was made public?
That big sting, last week you were reading about, police officers, firemen, and teachers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's very pervasive through the society. If you think that problem doesn't exist, you're being naive, and you need
Yeah.
to wake up and start realizing that we live with a bunch of perverts.
Yeah, and
They
just,
are everywhere, and
Just-
we can't just assume, like the world we grew up in, where you could assume that if it was a policeman or a fireman or a school teacher or a minister, that, or, these people were all, they were safe people. These are the predators
Yep.
Yeah,
in
I
our
mean,
society.
They take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
yeah, some of them take, and you can't always trust even your best friend. I mean, my best friend's father, growing up, I was at her house all the time. He got busted for molesting a little boy. I was in my mid-20s before he got busted. I spent most of my childhood. My parents trusted that man with me like I was with them. I mean, she was with us a lot too. Did he ever do anything to me? No. But did my parents question that after that? Oh, absolutely.
This is why
Yeah.
Mountain Patriots is so important, guys.
So, I mean, it's
That's
just
why, because there's enough of us in-
wanting to educate people more and more and more to let them know
So many.
how bad this is.
This is, so.
Well,
We
so
can get into
exposed.
Wayfair
I mean,
and the other ways.
like a lot of things going on in our world, the craziness in the schools, the books that are being given, the types of individuals that are cross-dressing, what have you. It's like we feel handcuffed with a lot of things going on in our world, all the injustices, opening their
Yep.
borders, whatever.
That's why I have to
So
stand
this
up.
is just one of numerous problems
Yep.
going on, that we have a sickness in the society.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's deep in our government.
It's called sin.
Yeah. I mean, we have all these pride marches and transgenders dancing half naked. I mean, you don't even want women dancing half naked. I don't want a man dressed like a woman dancing half naked around my kids, grandkids. I mean, they just had one at the museum
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago.
Museum's gone now.
Just all,
What do you mean?
They closed it.
What
They closed the museum
Museum
on-
of Shenandoah Valley is closed?
Gone. Closed Tuesday.
The monument closed.
that's the monument.
no, the monument closed downtown, not the museum. This was at the museum on Amherst Street.
Museum, I've been in there too.
I was an education sponsor at the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley, and Randy showed me that on the night, we had a huge event. And in the morning, he was like, oh, and I looked at it, I was like, what? And I had numerous people sending me these photos of it. I was shocked. It was
Oh.
marketed as a family-friendly thing, and I pulled my sponsorship.
Yeah, a friend of mine that I went to school with posted online that she was appalled.
What I consider education. So I'm definitely not putting,
Your name.
nice hunk of money into that situation. And a lot of their sponsors, conservative sponsors, have pulled from their sponsorship.
Yeah, I mean,
Talking about the Shenandoah Museum?
Yep.
yep. Yeah, they had that whole, it was, some of those pictures I saw, I was like, are you kidding me? I was shocked by it. I can't imagine letting,
So who approved that?
The reason
The
they
sure
did
city
it
of Winchester
was
had to.
that
Nope.
evidently that
Who did?
whatever it
Listen.
was, march or whatever they were
Listen.
doing happened normally in Old Town. And there was a lot of protesting and there was some violence. And so somebody at the museum said, well, if we bring it on private property, at least people will be protected. You can't, a little bit more control on that front. And that's why it ended up there.
Really?
I was shocked.
What happened to the original purpose of the museum? Because wasn't it sort of to keep farming a rural thing? Wasn't there
Well,
a
the
reason?
original purpose of the museum here, I mean, the
whole place.
The Julian Glass who lived at the museum, he was an openly gay man. And the fella after he died that ran the place was his partner for years. Now, these were gay men in the 50s, okay, so they weren't these flamboyant, walking around naked.
In the
They were
property.
very polished and dressed, and kind of a little secretive almost. But, I mean, he was a gay guy that lived in the place, and his family owned the, so I think a lot of people thought, well, that would be a good place for it. But that's not really what the museum stands for,
yeah, it's not a family-friendly event
yeah,
at all. But,
yeah,
We
so.
need to grow this one.
Have you ever met with the new superintendent for this Frederick County?
no, I have not.
So
I've only been doing this for a couple months, and so,
I think the gentleman that's running for Back Creek is a little bit disappointed with the new superintendent. And you would think that he would be a little bit more conservative in that, does he get to keep the job? I mean, I think he's saying we can't remove the books.
yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, well, most of us here don't have school-age children anymore. So as grandparents and, teaching our children and our,
Well, the parents are busy working, so it's as if they're not there either. And so there's nobody there.
yes, sir.
I'm part of the Shenandoah Christian Alliance. We meet in Front Royal. Front Royal has taken to task the library there, Bowman Library, to get the pornography, children's pornography out of it. All they've gotten so far is they've got it moved to another section, but it's still there. It turns out that Bowman Library is a private institution, a private company, that Front Royal gave permission for them to create a library as a company, and Front Royal, the government, provides $1 million a year to run the library. So we've been, as Shenandoah Christian Alliance, Dale Carpenter is our leader. He's been leading a push on them to do just that, to get it out of the library in the face of being argued that, well, that's censorship, that's book burning, and it's not. But they haven't won yet. So the tack they're taking now is to convince Front Royal government to stop funding them unless they do what we're asking. Or even revoke that and start a public library at $1 million a year. They can get something going somewhere else.
And hasn't that been going on for quite a while now?
It has been.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Madeline's on that.
So it's a long fight.
Yeah.
So, it's sad, and I don't have any total solutions, or just educating everybody let them know,
Wake up.
helping, listening to any children you come in contact with, trying to help them not become victims. And I'm talking, to me, children are 25 years and younger.
Right.
Not when I was 20, children were 5 and 6. Now, my son's 38, so anybody under 38 to me is a child.
Absolutely.
So, any other questions?
This was excellent.